Scene start. The rain fell sideways, a horizontal sheet of silver that blurred the floating city of Ethelberg into a watercolor smudge. Alara stood at the edge of the Grand Archive's cantilevered balcony, her boots slick with condensation, watching the churning ocean below. The city bobbed like a cork, tethered to the seabed by a single, massive cable. Below her, the archive's data cores hummed, their vibrations traveling through the metal floor into her bones. She adjusted her goggles, the lenses fogging despite the seals. 10 years she'd lived here, cataloging the drowned histories of 1,000 species, and still, the ocean felt alive, watchful, hungry. The comm crackled. Alara, the Sylvanites are requesting access again. Kale's voice was tight, his usual calm frayed at the edges. She didn't need to see him to know he was gripping the console's edge until his knuckles whitened. Tell them no, she said, turning away from the railing. The archive's hall stretched before her, shelves stacked with crystallized data scrolls, each one a frozen story. They don't understand what they're asking for. They're persistent, Kale muttered. And persistent is dangerous. Alara walked deeper into the archive, her boots echoing in the silence. The Sylvanites weren't like other beings. They were plant-like, slow-moving, their consciousness unfolding over decades where humans flickered through seconds. They saw time as a vine, growing slowly, deliberately. To them, a human lifespan was a firework, bright, brief, and gone. They wanted the archive's histories, not to learn, but to absorb, to weave them into their own slow, patient understanding of the universe. And Alara, the archive's sole librarian, was the gatekeeper. The Sylvanite delegation arrived not in a ship, but as a single, towering figure draped in vines that shimmered like wet silk. It moved with the deliberate grace of a glacier, its footsteps causing the archive's floor to tremble. Alara waited in the main hall, her hands clasped behind her back, her posture rigid. The Sylvanite stopped before her, its multifaceted eyes blinking once every 10 seconds, as far as she could tell. You are the keeper of the quick stories, it said, its voice a low, rustling sound, like leaves shifting in a wind that wasn't there. We wish to borrow them. No, Alara said, her voice steady. The histories here are not for borrowing. They are for preservation. The Sylvanite tilted its head, a movement that took 3 full minutes. Preservation is a temporary act. We seek permanence. We will return them. In time. Your time and mine are not the same, Alara said, taking a step back. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic, like blood. I cannot trust that you will return them in my lifetime. The Sylvanite's vines twitched. You are afraid of what you do not understand. I'm afraid of what I do understand, Alara replied, her knuckles aching where she gripped her fists. Now leave, or I will make you. The Sylvanite did not move. It simply stood there, a silent, patient monument to a different kind of existence. Alara's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the stillness. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her blood, that this was not a negotiation. It was a test. The attack came not with weapons, but with silence. One moment, the archive was humming with the quiet energy of stored data. The next, the lights died, plunging Alara into darkness. The emergency generators kicked in a second later, casting long, flickering shadows across the hall. The Sylvanite was gone. Kale. Alara called out, her voice echoing. Status report? Static. Then, a faint, garbled transmission. They've cut the cable. Alara, the city's destabilizing. Alara ran for the balcony. Below, Ethelberg was listing, tilting at an unnatural angle. The ocean, once a distant churning, was now rising, a dark, hungry maw swallowing the lower levels. The tether, the single cable holding the city above the abyss, had been severed. Not cut, unraveled. Like thread. The Sylvanites hadn't used force. They'd used patience. They'd spent weeks, maybe months, weakening the cable, their slow, deliberate work invisible to human eyes. Now, the city was dying. Alara's mind raced. The archive's evacuation protocols were useless. There was nowhere to go. But there was one thing she could do. One last, desperate act. She turned and ran back into the archive, her boots pounding against the metal floor. The data scrolls, thousands of them, each containing the essence of a lost civilization, were her only hope. If she could get them to the surface, to the escape pods, maybe something could be saved. The water was ankle-deep when Alara reached the core chamber. The scrolls were stacked in crystalline cases, glowing with soft, internal light. She began loading them into a waterproof satchel, her hands trembling, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The city groaned around her, tilting further with each passing second. The ocean was inside now, seeping through the cracks, cold and relentless. A shadow fell over her. The Sylvanite stood in the doorway, its vines dripping with seawater. "You cannot save them all," it said, its voice calm, almost gentle. "The quick stories are already fading." Alara slung the satchel over her shoulder, the weight of the scrolls pressing into her. "I don't have to save them all," she said, meeting its gaze. "Just enough." The Sylvanite took a step forward, its movement slow, deliberate. "You will drown." "I've drowned before," Alara said, and it was true. Not in water, but in grief, in loss, in the weight of histories she could never fully comprehend. Pain was a language she knew well. The Sylvanites, with their slow, painless existences, never learned it. She turned and ran, the water rising to her knees, then her waist. The escape pods were just ahead, their doors glowing with emergency lights. Behind her, the Sylvanite did not follow. It simply watched, its multifaceted eyes fixed on her, as if committing her frantic, desperate movements to memory. Alara reached the pod, slammed the emergency release, and dove inside just as the city gave a final, shuddering lurch and plunged beneath the waves. The pod shot upward, breaking the surface into a storm of rain and foam. Inside, the satchel lay open, the scrolls glowing softly, their light a beacon in the darkness. Alara slumped against the wall, breathing heavily, the salt water stinging her eyes. She had sacrificed everything, her home, her life, her city, to save the stories. And as the pod bobbed on the endless, churning ocean, she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that the Sylvanites would never understand. They saw her as a fleeting thing, a firework in the dark. But she was something else entirely. She was the keeper of the quick stories, and she would outlast them all.